Welcome to the MZ Burning Glass studio. I am excited about a special employment update. The jobs report was just released 30 minutes ago. Sorry. My name is Chris Lane. I'm a senior workforce strategist here at MZ Burning Glass, and I am joined by two of our economists, Bloody Tasca, who is our chief economist, and our senior economist, Rucha Vankudre. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you guys.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chris.
Bloody, I want to start with you. The jobs report was just released 30 minutes ago, so you've had plenty of time to, analyze it.
Yes, it is.
Give us a quick rundown. Is there anything that was highlighted that just popped out to you immediately?
Well, things are looking good. They're better than we expected. We had an increase in employment. Employment rose by 678,000. Most economists, were expecting around 400,000. So that was sort of the first surprise. Unemployment rate edged down to 3.8% from 4% that was before. And also, people that could not work either because their employer lost their business or because they didn't want to work. That is also edging down. We're at 4.2 million now versus 6 before, prevented from looking for work due to the pandemic. So in theory, all of those numbers are looking good, but we are still down 2.1 million people from pre-pandemic. So still a long way to go.
Rucha, same question to you. Obviously, you've had plenty of time now to run an analysis, but anything that really just popped out to you this morning?
I think I would echo what Bloody said, which is that, this was definitely better than what people were expecting, which is great. I think, everything is continuing to trend in the right direction. But we are still, down total number of people compared to where we were pre-pandemic, and job openings are still up really high. So it's not clear that, there's going to be any easing up of this labor shortage that people are feeling, even if all the other signs are moving in the right direction.
Rucha, there was one thing that I noticed that is kind of important, and we've been talking about it over the last couple of weeks, and that is the fact that labor force participation among women actually was down this month. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, that's a little bit of a reversal of the trend we've been seeing. It had been slowly edging back up towards the end of 2021, and now it's back down again. Plenty of possible reasons for that. Certainly, with the last wave of the pandemic hitting in January, not surprising that more women had to drop out a little bit. But at the same time, I think, it's really putting the pressure on policymakers to say, if there are policy solutions to this problem, we're going to need them, because continuing to do what we've been doing is not getting the women back in the labor force.
Now, Bloody, a lot of the when we start to think about the labor gap, the shortage, but also the gap that's occurring in the labor market today, one of the things that has come up is kind of those sub-bachelor degrees or those with just a high school diploma. This is something that was noticed in the jobs report too, and the fact that it was down pretty significant. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I think the numbers are a little bit mixed, because essentially, we got an increase in the people that had less than high school, and we had a significant drop in the people that had high school. So I think it's sort of a mixed bag of what is really happening. And also, if you see the industries that are increasing, essentially, leisure and hospitality, accommodation, some of those that got the highest hit, they are actually higher. But again, that is a population that has gotten the highest hit, and that is, again, as Rucha said, there's a lot then that the policymakers can do.
So one of the other things that we've been monitoring for quite a while, but definitely during the pandemic, how it increased, is remote work in general. We're noticing that it is starting to trend downward, where people are finally returning back to the office. Your thoughts on that? Do you think that's a continued trend, and this is for both of you? So, Rucha, I can start with you. Do you think that's a continued trend? People are headed back to downtown corridors, back in the offices, or are we going to start to level out and remote work is here to stay forever?
Well, I think there's a couple factors at play. So you're right that, it is down from what it was previous month. I think closer to 13% now. But obviously that's very high compared to what we've been seeing. But I think an important thing to keep in mind here is that, with the labor shortage, I think a lot of employers are not going to be able to insist on having people come back depending on the industry they're in, right? There's not enough people to go around. You're going to need to expand hiring beyond your local geography. And so I think to some extent, at least while these labor shortages play out, remote work is going to be here to stay.
Bloody, your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the trend that we're seeing right now is definitely, signifying towards that. But I think it's too early to tell. And I think, one of the biggest challenges is that especially from the survey, we can't really tell if how much of this is actually true remote work versus hybrid. And I think probably where we're going to land is more into the hybrid situation. Rucha today is from home and I'm in the office. And I think that's probably going to be, the reality that we're going to face. I think it's going to be a challenge to understand exactly what the data is saying, because there's too many things that are going on. Obviously, December and January were too harsh in terms of, people had to work remotely. We are going to see a small down peak in the next couple of months, but I don't think that in the mid run people are coming to the office full time. I think we're probably going to see more sort of a remote situation, a hybrid situation where some days they are working, some days they are not.
You bring up a really good point. One of the challenges right now is the fact that if people are returning back to work, and those benefits are definitely playing a role, those that want to work remote, those that can't work remote, are those employers going to be able to find people to fill those jobs, especially if they're having to head back to the office if they haven't figured out childcare and things of that nature? Rucha, I want to go to you really quickly. Can you just break down a little bit of the job growth? What do those numbers look like when we start to break it down by industry? Specifically, I want to focus on the added jobs and some of the areas that have been hit hardest over the last couple of years.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think one thing that was nice about this month's job report was that the job growth was actually pretty well distributed across industries. So, something we've been seeing previously is that, leisure and hospitality, those have all been hit really hard, whereas things like transportation had been doing better. And this month's is really sort of showing, I think, more of a nice distribution back kind of to what we're used to seeing. So there was the largest gains were actually in leisure and hospitality. They were up 179,000. Then we also had gains in business and professional services, in education and health services was up 112,000. And even construction, which we've been seeing, pretty level actually for the past few months, was up 60,000, which I think is a great sign for all those people trying to get new things built.
No, that's a great sign. So one of the things that obviously we're starting to monitor, this is a great jobs report in terms of creating jobs. And right now we're kind of in a situation where potentially supply chains are going to be disrupted once again when we start to evaluate what's happening in the global economy. I just want to take a moment. Is there any thoughts on potentially going forward? If while we're really excited about the numbers today, do you think over the next couple of months, could we see some downward trends or potentially not? And Bloody, I'll go to you first. Oh, Rucha,
yeah.
you talked. Let's go.
No, I was going to say, I mean, things are so volatile right now in the global economy that I would be very scared to speculate. So if Bloody would like to speculate, go for it.
Oh, there we go.
I mean, I don't think it's that difficult to speculate for the next month. I think, again, the difficulty is what's going to happen in the months that follow after that. But I think the next month we're going to have potentially a downtrend in all of these positive trends that we're seeing, because, again, the markets are scared. Supply chains issues are going to be there. So, again, that is very different from, is this just an initial reaction versus is this here to stay? I think we will see definitely a reaction in the next report. I think the biggest question is what will happen after that in the next 6 months and so on. And that's a question that we all have. I mean, this situation that is happening right now needs to be solved pretty soon. Otherwise, there are going to be very large downstream effects in supply chain. Again, remember, Ukraine is probably one of the largest wheat producers in the world, and these are not simple problems. If supply chains get disrupted there, a big majority of countries that are getting that, especially in Africa, they're going to have serious problems.
So, Bloody, I'm going to stay with you for just a second. If you're an employer and you brief this jobs report really quickly, obviously there's some good news in here, but as an employer, what in this report should give you concern, if any?
Well, again, if you're an employer, there are two ways to interpret this. In the sense, again, other employers are finding jobs, so that's good. But in some ways, the job market is becoming even tighter because people are coming and there's not a large, supply of people on the sides that are waiting to get employed. So on one side, I would be worried even more, and again, we might even see pressure in significant, even more pressures in wages. So on the other side, we are seeing some of the sort of the trends or the effects of the pandemic fading out. So that is positive news. But, for employers per se, this is not necessarily positive because, again, remember, this is essentially a competition. So there are winners and losers. For the economy overall, it's good. but for individual employers, actually might not be as great. And again, that is, if we put the right policies in place, maybe some of that get eased out. But that is the bigger question at this moment. Why are we not seeing, women, for example, coming back to the labor force? Why are we seeing these drops in people, with high school? And until those, issues get solved, it will be a problem for employers.
Rucha, do you have any thoughts on that? If you're an employer right now and you're seeing these jobs numbers, you're already struggling to find talent, and then all of a sudden it's recruiting more jobs, and where are the people?
Yeah, I mean, I think as I said at the beginning, the labor shortage problem is not going anywhere, right? If anything, the fact that unemployment is down a little bit and the female participation rate is down is not good news, right? For people who are fighting. And if you look at, some of the JOLTS reports we've been seeing with these record high job openings numbers, we just don't have the number of people to fill the number of jobs there are. So I'm not sure what employers are going to be doing, but I would be worried.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity. Let's leave it at that.
Yeah, I mean, again, necessity is the mother of invention, and whenever we have issues, we find solutions. So I think we'll solve some of these issues, but I don't think in the next couple of years we'll see solutions that were not imagined. I think employers will have to start being more innovative and looking outside outside the box and the traditional ways of recruiting talent.
Rucha, I want to, both of you are going to get the same question. Rucha, I'm going to start with you. Top 3 takeaways for this month's report. Start.
Economy is looking good overall. Employment is growing, but we don't have any more people than we've had before. And so we're going to continue to feel a lot of labor tightness. It's great that the jobs have been distributed across industries. But like I said, I think the real thing everyone's going to be focused on here is the tightness in the labor market, and that's just not going anywhere.
Buddy, for you, top 3 takeaways in this month's report?
Well, employment is definitely doing great. Some of the problems are still remaining. The effect of COVID is fading away. So I would say those are sort of the 3 main. But there's a 4th one that is sort of hidden in the report, is that we are continuing to buy a lot more things. So, for example, if you see transportation and warehousing employment, that is increasing and is significantly higher than pre-pandemic. And essentially, what that means is that inflation is now also going to continue to be a problem. And so that is sort of like a hidden message in this employment report.
And I think, sorry, I just wanted to jump onto that as well, since we haven't mentioned it yet. The CPI, which came out last month, showed a record high of, I think, since 1982, at 7.5% increase for the consumer price index for the 12-month change, which is very high. So yeah, inflation is definitely, I think, really going to be the topic, along with the labor shortages, on everyone's mind for this next month.
No, that's important to keep in mind. And thank you guys both, Rucha and Bloody. Thank you for your insights. Extremely early analysis, a report that just came out 40 minutes ago, and you had to jump into it so quickly. You can look for the analysis on the website at mzbg.com. Again, my name is Chris Laney. I'm a senior workforce strategist here, and it has been a pleasure being with you today on LinkedIn.